As Dean Varona noted, our faculty is doing amazing work. Since I have just a few minutes, I will only briefly describe all of the ways, over the past year, that they've been moving forward the discourse on issues of local, national, and international significance using both traditional and innovative approaches. When considering traditional legal scholarship, our faculty is highly productive. For example, Professor Richard Delgado, a founder of critical race theory, has been recognized as one of the top 10 most cited legal scholars in U.S. history and shows no signs of slowing down. In the past year, Professor Delgado and Professor Jean Stefanchik have collaborated on at least 5 publications, including one that was recently published in the Boston University Law Review. Our other colleagues have produced dozens of books, articles, chapters, essays, and other scholarly works, placing them in top-ranked law reviews like the California Law Review and Northwestern Law Review. While the collective achievements of the faculty cannot be reduced to a numerical score, it is always nice when scholarly rankings confirm the impact being made. The most recent versions of the CISC Scholarly Impact Rankings and the Forward-Looking Academic Impact Rankings for U.S. law schools both have Seattle University School of Law as the top Pacific Northwest law faculty and in the top third of all law schools nationally. Other signals further corroborate our faculty's accomplishments. Professor Brooke Coleman, a noted civil procedure scholar, was elected to the highly selective American Law Institute. Professor Najun Menka, an accomplished teacher scholar and the faculty director of the Northwest Center for Indigenous Law, was named a 2024-25 Obama Foundation USA leader. Several members of our faculty, including Professor Elizabeth Ford, who teaches the Workers' Rights Clinic, have had their work peer-reviewed in Jotwell, a site that brings attention to important new legal scholarship. Professor Menka, along with Professor Amanda Elise, an animal law expert, and Professor Deborah Ahrens, a criminal law expert, contributed chapters to a book that was awarded the 2025 Joseph L. Andrews Legal Literature Award from the American Association of Law Libraries. Professor Margaret Chong, an expert on intellectual property and technology, received an Authors Alliance grant to fund her Fostering Global Scientific Exchange through Gen AI Translations project. Now, one thing that makes the Seattle University School of Law faculty so special is how they break down long-standing boundaries and challenge conventional ways of doing things, whether it's shaking up the first-year curriculum or exploring the possibilities of artificial intelligence, as seen in those last 2 examples. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Highlighting this creativity, Professor Dean Spade's new book, which builds on and integrates aspects of his expertise with queer and trans liberation, offers self-help advice for and about people who are motivated to collectively resist normative cultural expectations, one relationship at a time, as he put it. Professor Spade's book received a Peak Pick choice from the Seattle Public Library, as well as a starred review in Booklist. Illustrating the interdisciplinary work that is being done, Professor Deirdre Bowen, a nationally recognized expert in family law, domestic violence, and affirmative action, frequently places her work in top academic journals in other disciplines that touch on these areas. For example, she recently published articles in Criminology and Public Policy and the Journal of Interpersonal Violence. Professor Erin Carr, a constitutional law expert, published her article, America's Extortionist in Chief, with the Sun Sentinel, just one of the faculty's contributions to popular media outlets that communicate important legal concepts to a broad audience. And Professor Michael Blasey, an expert on plain language laws, delivered a keynote address at a conference held at the University of Inland Norway, illustrating the faculty's global engagement. The faculty's creativity and impact doesn't stop with the written word. These thought leaders work hard to build community and multiply their impact by hosting and presenting at conferences, workshops, and other scholarly events. Professor Charles O'Kelly, an expert on corporate law and governance, sponsors the annual Burley Symposium on Corporations, Law, and Society. Professor Sheetal Kalantri, the founding director of the Round Glass India Center and an expert in comparative law, business and human rights, and feminist legal theory, has put on numerous events featuring everybody from the incoming Chief Justice of the India Supreme Court to a member of Congress to a Ninth Circuit judge, and even a Grammy Award-winning musician. Associate Dean Stephen Bender and Professor Angela Harris, 2 national leaders in the area of critical theory, planned a workshop on the law and political economy of legal education, with faculty members from across the country joining the 5-day event. And our faculty is not content to stay isolated in the ivory tower. Instead, they leverage their scholarly expertise to engage in a wide range of intellectual advocacy, and their advocacy likewise informs their scholarship. For example, our faculty has been part of numerous amicus efforts, ranging from minimum wage statutes to antitrust to constitutional issues like birthright citizenship. Professors Jessica Levin and Melissa Lee are true leaders along this dimension, bringing to bear their wide-ranging expertise with civil rights and civil litigation. To highlight just one of their projects, with co-counsel, they filed amicus briefs supporting First Amendment freedoms in 4 different cases brought by law firms, challenging Trump executive orders that targeted the firms for their prior work. Professor Thomas Ankowiak, an international law expert, argued before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the highest human rights tribunal in the Americas. Professor Pilar Escontrias, an expert in critical race theory and abolitionist praxis, coordinated a legal response team at the Department of Homeland Security after USCIS directed non-citizens with pending immigration cases to show up for an emergency check-in to a field office. In my role as the Vice Dean for Intellectual Life, it is a genuine pleasure to support my colleagues as they engage in groundbreaking scholarship to make the world more just. And I can't wait to see what they do next.